Well, thank you very much, Abby, for being here. Last year when we were, so originally you guys, Abby and I were trying to get everybody's voices together, and we were going to do something. Remember at the park, we were like, let's get faces and testimonies and let's try to capture this.
Yeah.
You know, we were just doing whatever we could last year, you know, to throw it against the wall to try it. And you know, no one wanted to do, like we Abby and I were like, let's, you know, unite our voices and get everybody's platform together.
Yeah.
And honestly, everybody just wanted to do their own thing. Do you remember
exactly
that?
Yeah, we were like, oh, this is going to go well when everyone else pisses off, and it's just you and me in a field.
But I love it because honestly, again, like this past week, you and me were like, hold up, out. You know, that's why I was like, gosh, she is like, you know, like I love that we're finally speaking, because I know people have some questions for you, but I mean, guys, and we talk about the journey we're taking and the people we're meeting. Like I feel blessed to have met someone like Abby, and I'm so glad that through this I got to know her. We finally get to do this.
It's so lovely to meet you. And I think didn't we have a WhatsApp chat? Do you remember? It was like really, it was so, but it lifted my spirit so much, you know, because I was so down. And then I just saw you pop up and I was like, oh, this is great. And then, you know, and then here we are.
Yeah. Well, last year, Vicki and I had an original group, and I was kicked out for like, being too famous. I mean, no one told me the truth. And Vicki was like, just don't worry about it. I'll join a new group with you. So here, Vicki and I were like on our own, you know, talking about therapy and the collapse of the economy. And then it kind of spiraled into this, you know, let's start talking to other people. And I found you last year, and I feel like you and I are kindred spirits.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we really are. And we had, didn't we? We had, I don't know how much your viewers know about the Matt Hancock interview, because that was something we spoke about very recently. James Melville. Am I allowed to just say names? I don't have to
go ahead. Probably be censored.
Fucking hell. I'm going to get banished from society. Oh, hooray. So James Melville and Isabel Oakeshott. So James Melville, I think of him as kind of a Scottish Alan Partridge. I don't know if anyone listening knows who I'm talking about. Kind of Steve Coogan is a comedy character, real nerd, who like thinks they're cool, but actually isn't in any way, shape or form cool. Do you know what I mean? It's like really sad. Anyway, and he'll like, when he tweets, it's like in memes, like he'll kind of go blah, 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 like he's Plato. And I'm like, you're not, you're really not. Anyway, that's enough bitching about him. Then there's Isabel Oakeshott, who's like real, I'd say, establishment journalist. So conservative, I've worked for the Telegraph, Spectator, you know what I mean? That real sort of just in with the establishment. And then they started a podcast called Speak Easy, where they were like, this is going to be a podcast for freedom fighters. Yeah, let's get some people on who are like really, you know, up against it. And the first guest they get on, Matt Hancock, the architect of doom. Actually, no, sorry, the first guest was Jim Rickards. I'll tell a lie. But the second guest, I mean, it's just, who's next? The ghost of Pol Pot. I was thinking to myself, what the fuck? What are you doing? This is just, anyway. So then we were in the same group, and then I said what I felt, because call me old fashioned, but I think sometimes when people are hobnobbing with dictators and tyrants and psychopaths, it's quite good to call it out. And I was the only one really who, amongst that group of people who did it. So I'd really let rip. And I think, you heard that message where I was just seething with rage.
Charlotte actually sent it to me. So thank you for, you know, that it was really, really powerful.
Yeah.
And, you know, I felt, I couldn't believe how a few of them started messaging me. We were in a few crossover groups.
Yeah.
In these WhatsApp groups, I mean, one of them, I was like, this is just, you know, like me, like him posting our tweets, and what are we supposed to retweet? I mean, that's all it was. And I felt like everyone was caught like a deer in headlights. They didn't even know how to respond. And then they start, I mean, and the insanity of it was, I was told to fuck off for my pseudo radicalism, okay, from a wannabe academic. And then the moaning started where it was like, you know, why are we just mad at James and not Isabel? Well, James is the one pretending to be everybody on the side of truth.
Precisely. Yeah.
We kind of, Isabel was a mainstream, you know, and anybody that's still towing that party Tory line, oh, cringe.
Yes, cringe. Oh, proper cringe. And yeah, you're right. It's like in a way, I'd rather somebody came out and said, look, I'm with the establishment because I'm doing it for my career. I would respect that. What I don't respect is somebody going, look at me, like I'm kind of Che Guevara, you know, I'm a bit of a revolutionary, but actually we know deep down that they're just shilling.
But you remember I said, what is really blowing my mind here is that they are defending Matt Hancock. Like, he's made a lot of tough decisions. You don't understand the establishment if you don't the difficulty of these. And then everyone's like, oh, think of the opportunity lost. I'm like, are you mad? Do you really think these people are capable of grilling him to get the truth? Because what's the truth? Your country's sold out 10 days before the lockdown. I mean, we see there where you met with the Bank of England Asset Purchase Refinance Committee, the nation's broke. You've been taking handouts from a globalist puppet master for the last, I mean, tell us the truth about what they do.
Yeah.
Do they
tell us, Matt?
Tell you or bribe you first? Which is it?
Yeah.
Is this before or after the cult ritual? I mean, what is the facts here? And
I know.
You think these bozos are the ones that are going to get the truth? I mean, and then they were like,
I agree.
You're missing the point. You need to watch it to the end where they say they're coming back to grill him. I was like, oh.
That was the worst bit. That was the bit where I went, oh my God, just say we fucked up and we never want to see this man again. Don't then go, we want him back. Jesus Christ. So actually they've kind of dug the hole even deeper, haven't they? And you know, the other thing I think I said when they were talking to him about cryptocurrency, Matt Hancock, and then I went, why don't you get Jen Arcuri on? That was in the message, because it was so weird. Why would you get him on to talk about? Anyway, it was it's just bullshit. They know what they're.
I reached out to James like months ago or whatever, you know, and he said something about Bitcoin. I said, listen, before you get suckered in by the ignorance, let me talk to you about crypto, because I get why the appeal to Bitcoin, especially for somebody that's not, and you know, all this, you know, like Vicki and I mean, this is like what we talk about weekly, like CBDC, the doom and gloom, like, let us break it for you. Let's talk about how the internet's changing. Let me tell you why. And I reached out to him directly. This is what will never work. It's not sustainable. And so that's why I just felt like, what a slap in the face for him to be like, yeah, Bitcoin. Like, he knew. Like, dude, what?
He does that a lot. He does that a lot, you know, like he'll, with my comedy stuff, he won't ever retweet people. It's almost like, because he knows that they know better about things than he does. So as a kind of like, in a way, it's almost like, he's just a little bitch, basically. James Melville. I never trusted him. Not.
Yeah, I mean, she reached out. She was like, "Oh, Jen, you know how these things are. They require planning, execution, producing. You know, like this was in studio. This was not a fly by the night. Hey, what are you doing next week?"
Yeah,
it was 100% controlling the narrative.
Yes,
and I think
completely.
Going, why are they still moaning? You know, going on about this. This is you guys. You know, when you look at following someone so blindly and loving his tweets and retweeting them and oh my God, you know, and he's sharing them all into these WhatsApp groups. And then he like this, and then everyone's like, can we just move on, please?
Yeah, that's the bit that really got me. And I think you pointed it out, where everyone was like, let's just kind of like, we need to just like move on and all be friends. I was like, you've got to be fucking joking. It's like having somebody going, let's have a chat with Adolf Hitler. You know, he seems like a nice guy. Let's have him round for tea and biscuits.
When I said, let's on, and because one of the people said, oh, Isabel apparently has direct access. I was like, I have direct Matt Hancock. Like, that's nothing to brag about. It's like,
I was gonna say, exactly. Don't brag about it. But then now on Twitter, James Melville is now comparing himself to Nelson Mandela, because Vicky's laughing, because Nelson Mandela reached out to the enemy. I'm like, oh my God. It's like, why don't you just stop tweeting about it? It's like James kind of like is doubling down on it all, you know?
No,
it's extraordinary.
In the middle of a war is the last time you reach out.
Yes.
If you wanted to reach out to the enemy, you should have done it 2 years ago when he
precisely
doing the actual murdering and overseeing this kind of debacle, that now we're here picking up the pieces and piecing for the dots and the data and the connections, and all of that could have, but honestly, there's so many great voices that even if you were part of the establishment or whatever, being put together, a podcast that we could really present some strong, carry this out. And that's why it's so, frustrating, because the community said, can we just move on and get together? No, because suddenly we're faced with the fact that somebody that was apparently supposed to be on the side of truth and freedom and integrity is now making plans with the enemy. Exactly.
And I agree with you. I was as you heard from my message, I was just so angry and furious that everyone was, I said to somebody, one of the other people in the group, I said, be really careful, who you back, because this isn't going to go well for you if you start publicly going, oh, well, James is a good friend of mine. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Christ.
Until he's not.
Exactly. Until he's not, until James dumps you in favor of Matt Hancock.
And literally, this is what we're seeing, you guys. It's like this control. We picked up on it last year when no one wanted to unite their voices and stay on one podcast. Everyone cared about their damn views, likes, and subscribe. And I remember Vicki, I was like, this is insanity. To be fair, Gareth, he was all about it. Me, you, and Gareth, Abby. But nobody else wanted. In fact, they all just about each other, and I was like, wait a minute, what are we doing? Are we trying to unite our voices to basically say, look, we don't have to across the board, this isn't, someone doesn't agree with me, so they're an automatic control opposition. That is so stupid in mental, like, I can't even bring myself to that logic. When someone doesn't agree with you, that's one thing, okay? So there were people on that channel that were just cringe, moan, like excusing murderers, an interview with a murderer. But then there were other people that were actually patronizing in their, you don't understand how the establishment works if you don't want to play ball. No, sir. You only play ball with the establishment when you want to hold on to whatever you're trying to hold on to. Yeah. And for that person that you said, oh yeah, he's a bad egg.
Yeah. It's true.
It's true. You can see how they're dividing, they conquer, and then you start looking, you're like, what actually happens in this group? Oh, wait, a few people just post their tweets over and over and over again.
Yes.
And I like, because a lot of these people are celebrities or influencers, I didn't know a lot of them personally.
Yeah, sure.
I think they knew me from the scandal, like embarrassing, So like, they all thought I was probably some bimbo, like, I loved Boris once and he screwed me. No. And when I came in, I left those, I'm like, let me be very clear. They were probably like, who the hell is
this? Yeah. But something, what I always used to annoy me, and I don't know if your viewers will relate to this, but in the group, there were all these people going, we're talking to Steve Baker, who's a Tory MP. We're doing this. So it's all like, it was protesting, but within the Overton window. You know what I mean? And I was always on there, actually quite rarely, but whenever I went on, I always said, guys, are we going to talk about the jabs? Are we going to talk about the mRNA gene technology that's going to kill people, or are we just going to keep wanking on about, going out for a social? Let's all meet up in a club in London and just get drunk. Guys, there's terrible things happening. The fact that you're all meeting in an Italian restaurant, by the way, I never went to a single one of those things, where they were like, let's all meet up. It's like, to me, that's not serious. That's not making change, we can all get, we can get drunk and whatever, but that seemed to be the only thing that was happening, you know, and none of them went on the marches. You know, all these people, James Melville, not a single march. Yeah, and he was all about, you know, like lockdowns or so, because I don't know if you've heard him speak, but when he speaks, he talks like that. It's like magnificent. He says, my name's James. He's like proper Scottish accent. And he's talking about, we've got to fight these people and blah, blah, blah. And then, James, have you ever been on any marches, any protests in London? No. So it's like walk the walk, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Abby, there's a few questions that I know are in that channel, but I wanted to ask you, so people want to know about how red-pilled you are, so we'll touch base on that. But I mean, I wanted to know if you could speak to this, just given on these WhatsApp, like when you're chosen to be part of the influencer group or
yeah, I bet they regretted it as soon as I was in.
I know. We'll start our own. I mean, what?
Yeah.
Always good for that. Yeah. Okay, so can you talk, because I've mentioned a few times, and sometimes I'm accused of people, they're like, oh, she's holding back. And it's like, no, I'm not really holding back, but it's hard to explain because like I've mentioned a few times this notion of like the groupie list. So like there's always a who's who of events, like you were just talking about, their dinners, where like they same people over and over again. List, you get invited to like pitch at the Palace, all the Palace events, it's almost like, it's like you're not the elitist group, and you're not even like the 1%, you're just in the belly of the influencers they want to have around, basically, for that bond, that endorsement. I mean, I'm one of them. I felt like I was passed around the Tory party because I had the loudest mouth, the best events, and you know, like secrets, but everyone knew.
Up your sleeve.
People knew me by my events and like the entrepreneur visa and a lot of policy stuff within tech that I was doing. But I was one of those groupies. And I always try to explain to people, like, why don't more groupies speak out? Because you are endorsed and like placated and like the carrot, you know what I mean? Like even with this group, you know, all the no one wanted to speak out against each other. They cared more about the social buy-in. From that.
Exactly. There are a couple of people in there. Actually, probably the better known ones. Annabelle Croft, who's a great tennis player. I don't know if you know of her. She's really played Wimbledon and stuff. She's very much on our page. But of course, she felt, unless there's more voices saying, come on, guys, we need to get serious, then it's difficult, isn't it? If you're like a lone one person in a WhatsApp group, you know? But it's the social thing. I know there's a big event I was invited to at Chatsworth House, you know, which is like a big, you know, country house, you know, in Derbyshire. And I was invited by them, by the group. And do you know what? I woke up one morning and I thought, I can't go, because I would feel physically sick being around people dressed in all this glamour in this enormous house with this expensive food when there are people on their knees in this country. I suggested that I pay for somebody else to go, somebody on Twitter. And they said, actually, could it be somebody from within the group? So that's when I thought, this isn't about people. This isn't about the man or woman in the street. This is about your social standing in the media, you know, like, let's go to Groucho Club, let's do this, let's do that. And I suddenly thought, I don't want to be part of this. This is wrong. This is wrong.
You know, speaking of the Groucho Club, the Harvard Club, all those clubs, like, and I just think about like how I was taken to them for the Carlton Club. I mean, you know, like, I just think about these places where there's grooming going on. I've spoken to a few other young Tories, one of them who has a show on or she's not a Tory, but she's prominent on GB News. I mean, like, there's a lot of recognize the behavioral and pattern, you know, repetition that we're talking about, you know, because you get so like validated for being able to go to these things or having access or being invited to the London Stock Exchange, you know, like all these little power bridge. So then that's how they wisp you off your feet. So you're never questioning. You're just always rationalizing, excusing, validating. And it really dawned on me now that I'm totally, but like I was really in it going to all these events. And this is why a lot of them are scared. They don't know what we know. And so on that note, do you want to talk? I mean, because someone asked, they want to know how red-pilled you are. Like, how much do you know about the trafficking and what happens with children and ritual abuse and anything like that?
To be honest with you, I think I've known about this stuff for a long, long time. My late husband, Terry, who you would have loved, my darling Terence, hello, darling. He was my God, he knew, I mean, he was red-pilled as anything. And we used to talk about it years ago, the fact that child abuse, child trafficking goes right up to the top. And I mean the top of the establishment, the royal family. And that various, and the police cover it up. They're all sort of in it together. I mean, basically, there's corruption on so many, there's so much corruption that this whole last 2 years has just been the awakening, where people go, oh yeah, we thought that was a bit strange. Oh my God. And then they open the curtain and they effectively see the Wizard of Oz with his trousers down, and that is, so to me, this time is a mixed blessing for us. There's a sort of, now there's a chance to go, right, this is what we want. We want authenticity, and to get real. So it's like I said, it's a curse and a blessing at the same time. This 2 years, that's how I feel.
I think if we hadn't had the 2 years, as you say, Abby, we would still, so many people in that.
Yeah, it's kind of like I said, the Wizard of Oz has been caught with his trousers down, bent over, going, oh, never mind, doing something horrific. Like, in the film, he's just going like this with a wheel, going, oh, hello. But in this film, the Wizard of Oz is doing some terrible shit behind the curtain, and we've seen it. And I think we're the witnesses, like people like us. We're the what would you say? It's like when people, like in the Bible, you're witness to miracles, and then you or to hearing Christ speak, and then you go and say, "There's this guy, and he talks on a mountain about incredible stuff." So I feel that's kind of where we are. And it's very strange. I never thought that, in 2022, we'd be having that kind of revelation.
I mean, did your husband mention a lot of this stuff, like you didn't know what to do about it? Was it just known but not spoken about? Or, I mean,
it was actually, all his friends used to go, oh, you're such a conspiracy theorist. And this was like, what, 15, 20 years ago. So he would talk about Common Purpose, the organization that has infiltrated all the institutions in this country. So police, law, the church, the army, which is basically a Marxist organization run by Julia Middleton, whose dad was a Marxist. So my husband told me all this is like, I got such a great education. So he'd tell me about the Frankfurt School, Obama being a third way socialist along with Tony Blair. And so the architects of this, what would you call it? Sort of like, I was going to say communist, but that's maybe an old-fashioned word. What we're seeing at the moment has been in train for a long time. And all these players who are like, oh, but they're just, they were just prime ministers and whatever presidents, that they've learnt from the Marxists, and they've reinvented their this ideology. So it's pretty fucking terrifying, It's like, it's stuff that we've seen before in history, but it's repackaged. That's the way I look at it. So it's strange times. I mean, does that answer your question about how red-pilled I am? I'll tell you what, the other thing, I sometimes am not wary, that's the wrong word. If I'm talking to people, that things that are happening are so horrific that if I say it out loud to people, I'm worried that their mental capacity won't be able to cope with it, especially with the jabs, especially with the things that we're hearing, funeral directors and spikes in in what's happening with the vaccines. And even though we should be going shouting it out to everyone, I genuinely worry, because there are human beings out there who maybe had them sort of for because they were scared or for their own reasons, and now what, you know? So there is part of me which is really I tread carefully, you know, when I'm, because it's so horrific.
So when all of this started, were you more aware or open, you know, what opened your eyes for, you know, the first flag of this?
The first red flag. Do you know what it was? I think, and I've been thinking about this a lot, because, you know, kind of in the mists of time, when you look back, you're like, oh my God, 2020 or whatever, or 2019. My husband died at the end of 2018. So I was traumatized the whole of 2019. I was like, oh my God. My mother had become ill in 2019, long-term. She had a long-term illness. Then she died beginning of 2020. So to be honest, 2020, I was inside when all this was happening, going, grieving, double grief. And then it was when the news started pumping out all the figures. And then everyone was like on their, I remember thinking when people were on the balcony, you know, the clapping of the NHS, thinking, I've seen this before in movies about dystopian regimes, or movies about Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin. I lived in the Soviet, you know, Russia before the Berlin Wall came down. So I felt there was something like didn't, you know, so I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was cognitive dissonance. You know, when you're just like, there's something really horribly wrong here, but I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And then obviously things carried on, and then I started looking at like switching off. I switched off all the TV. I started looking at Ivor Cummins, Dr. Bhakti, you know, started like looking in little areas, going, this seems like real overkill for one coronavirus, which is the same viruses that cause the common cold, you know. So I was kind of, in a way, I was doing the computing in my head. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I'm not I think I got like a C in chemistry and biology at O level, but something in me was like, yeah, these dots don't add up, you know. And then I came to the other stuff a bit later on, the whole, and also there's people in China falling over, like going, oh my God, I'm on the street. That again was from my knowledge of Soviet propaganda and propaganda full stop, you know, where they would sort of do things basically for the outside world. So China was doing that. And so that was all, it was all like coming together in these little bits, but there wasn't like one thing really that made me wake up. It was just it was a feeling in my bones that this was wrong. All of it was wrong, you know?
Yeah. And then what brought you onto GB News? And then can you tell everybody about what happened?
Yeah. Oh, because because I know you love John Gaunt. I know he's one of your crushes. I know. One of your fantasies. Can you imagine? Hi, I'm John Gaunt. In swimwear. No, in little Speedos. Sorry, everyone watching. So basically, my GB News story happened when so when GB News started, they asked me on. They invited me on, Dan Wootton, to talk about being cancelled from comedy because I'd been cancelled for supporting J.K. Rowling. Oh my God, saying that there are two sexes. Anyway, and then men and women are different. So radical, I know. So I was invited on because I'd said it publicly. So all my comedian friends were like wasps going, you TERF, you transphobe. But this was back in 2020. Anyway, so I just thought, well, you're all mental. You're all clearly mental. Then the GB News thing happened. I was asked on as a guest. Then Dan said, will you be a regular sofa guest? So I was regular for like 8 months. And then I was also on Nana Okoye's show and Free Speech Nation, Andrew Doyle, as a comedian. Well, I was as a comedian actually for most of it, but it was kind of / commentator. So then I first met John Gaunt on a Dan Wootton show. This must have been August time, and he really went for me and said, "You haven't been vaccinated." To me, "You haven't been vaccinated, you know, you're selfish and you're this," and really screeched at me, and I just lost it on air. Anyway, so then it just carried on, whatever. Then I kept sort of doing shows, and then they paired me with John Gaunt on Nana Okoye's show, which I thought was really strange. It was almost like, looking back at it, they kind of wanted something to happen, you know, because it's like we'd already fallen out. Anyway, sorry, the long, boring way of saying it, that when I was on the Neil Oliver show at the beginning of January this year, and John Gaunt was the guest, and I turned up at the studio because, you know, Neil, you've been on Neil's show, and I turned up and literally went, of all the people that they put me on with Neil Oliver, they choose John Gaunt to do it. So this is a guy that has already caused trouble, by the way, for lots of people who work there. And she's gone. It's the talk of John Gaunt. The talk of John Gaunt made you go faint. Sorry. Anyway, and then anyway, so I'll get to the point. So basically, I'm on the show. We're talking about mandates for care workers, for hospital, for medical staff. John Gaunt's going, "Yes, it's a great idea." My microphone, by the way, breaks in the first part of the show. It's not working. I'm like, "Is this a setup?" And then there's this guy crawling around on the floor going, sticking the wire up my thing. And meanwhile, John Gaunt is doing this. There, jab the kids, jab the workers. I'm going like this. You can't hear me. Anyway, it gets to me, and I just say, "I just can't believe you think vaccinating children is good, it is moral, John. And if you were in hospital, you went to hospital, would you refuse treatment from somebody you knew was not vaccinated?" And he went, "I'm not going to answer that." I said, "It's quite a simple question, John. If you want people to be, it's mandated, then so you're going to refuse treatment if they're not. So you just, what's going to happen then when you go to the hospital?" So he was like, and then he literally went to Neil Oliver. He said, "Control her," about me, "control her. She's a big foul-mouthed yob." Live on air. And I was like, in my Bob Moran, you know, Bob Moran, the cartoonist. I was in one of his T-shirts where there's this Caliban sort of monster being dragged. You know, so it's like a sort of like a metaphor for being controlled, you know, the tyranny. So I'm wearing this T-shirt on Neil Oliver's show, and John Gaunt's basically lost it and told Neil to control me. And then I carry on with the show. We leave. Neil says, "Oh, thanks very much." And I'm like, "Oh, Neil, that was quite interesting." And then I'm never asked back. But John Gaunt has been back on, I think, twice since. I got an email from the CEO, from Angelos, saying he would look into it. This was very early on, you know, like, we'll look into the incident, because, you know, they were treating it like, oh, it was just an incident that was unpleasant, you know, on the screen, like it was sort of like nothing. And then never heard anything again. And actually, interestingly, a lot of the people that I were friends with and were close to haven't been in touch. Only Mark Dolan actually has said, "I really want to get you back on." But I'm like, "So why don't you then?" And he's like, "Well, because the producers are he actually said they're nervous. They're nervous of me. Well, because I might speak the truth on your." But you know what's interesting? So basically, that has been, so John Gaunt was invited back and I wasn't. And as you know, Twitter has commented on that, and they've said, "I think that's disgusting. It was really awful to watch." And so there's double standards going on because his behavior. So Abby's not on, but John is, for her views. Yeah. So that's pretty much that's the GB News story. You know, and I also criticized their testing policy before. Sorry, this is just a little adjunct, so you know that the thing, the pressure I was under. So they wanted me to test, you know, to do the up the nose and the thing, which I never did, before Christmas last year, and otherwise I couldn't be on a show. I couldn't be on the shows. So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And it's a farce anyway. And I tweeted about it. And funnily enough, they stopped the testing a week later. So something must have happened. But again, I wasn't, I'm the casualty.
So Neil followed up with you?
No. I messaged him a few times just after the event and said, oh, I said, yeah, God, that was really, that was it. He said, I want people to speak their mind on my show and blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, that's good. And then about couple of days late afterwards, I said, do you know what, Neil, actually, I'm feeling really, really low about this whole thing. I feel like I've been ganged up on, that this isn't fair. It's not a fair fight. And Neil said, oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that, and blah, blah. He said, but don't worry. He said, I don't hold it against you, the stuff that happened on the show. I don't. So I was like, okay, that's an interesting way to look at it. And people have said, I don't know what your views are, Jen, but why did Neil, why was he not more sort of like at the time, like time out, John, kind of defending me? I don't know. I don't know. People are different in stressful situations, So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he was sitting there like embarrassed about John.
Sure.
So it's to be honest, it wasn't a nice thing. It left a really bad, feeling. And me, look, I've played rooms of 200 pissed up Liverpudlians, some of whom have done coke and comedy clubs, right? I know how to handle hecklers. It doesn't faze me in the slightest if somebody, but when you're sitting and you're talking about stuff like mandating mRNA vaccines and talking about children, I will lose my shit. And I don't apologize for that. And I feel like, in a way, maybe what happened on GB News as sort of, I think I've been vindicated, Maybe not publicly. They're not gonna say, oh yeah, well done, Abs. They won't say that publicly, but I think deep down people know,
Do you think there was a kind of an impact from them in that they were still relatively new to a degree? They didn't want to get into the deep ins and outs kind of argument on that. They're still a bit nervous of finding their footing with their audience, so to speak, as opposed to being what they set out to be, which was a free voice for everybody.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of that, to be honest, because I was talking about the the jabs, God, way back when I was first on. I kept saying things like, is this a good idea, guys? We don't know what's in it. And you know what I mean? So I was like, and I'd always just get this, the eye roll. So there was a little bit of that. But to be honest with you, at the beginning of this year, I think really, and have you noticed, by the way, Mark Stein, who I respect very much, they've started talking about the jabs. All of a sudden, they've gone quick. And I know what it is. It's damage limitation, isn't it? It's because they're thinking, shit, if we don't start talking about it, we're going to look really bad when the shit hits the fan. So I think maybe someone said to me actually on Twitter, private message, they said you just peaked too soon. Your truth peaked too soon. And now they're catching up. And of course, people don't like being second, or they don't like being behind the curve, So there's still going to be people. There's still like Michelle Dewberry, she was, because I've got this character called Kathy Crunt, the newsreader, on Twitter, and so obviously people know it's me. But Michelle Dewberry said, why do you refer to yourself in the third person when it's Abi, when you're Abi? And I'm like, because it's a character. It's Kathy Crunt. And then I thought to myself, fucking hell, are you trying to get me thrown off Twitter? Because, I've been permanently banned from Twitter. So I thought, are you trying to get Twitter to notice that actually it's me? So I thought that was really low. Anyway, but that was when I was slagging off Alistair Stewart, the newsreader, because he was going, oh yes, I thought the lockdowns had merit at the time. I just thought, oh my God. Anyway, so.
Do you think are going to do that?
What, darling?
How many think are going to backpedal and think, oh, for the time, for the unprecedented circumstances, given what we do? I mean,
Good question. What is do you know something? I've got a horrible feeling they're going to start using the phrase, like, you know, hindsight. It's easy with hindsight, isn't it? Said, I'm like, Christ almighty, how long does it take you to get here? There's going to be lots of phrases like that. With hindsight, you know, we couldn't have known everything, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, but the thing is, it's been, if you look hard, you didn't even have to look that hard. Did you? I mean, I didn't have to dig that hard. I was like, oh, look, there's Ivor Cummins on a YouTube show. Oh, look, there's Dr. Bhakti talking about the technology, mRNA technology. It's really not hard, and I think people would they're just a lot. You know, they see it because Kathy Crumpet, my character, is meant to be like a CNN. It is, I know Americans who watch this. It's a CNN type character, you know, where she's like, she's all really perky and really cheery, and she wears a black wig, and her catchphrase is "Stay stupid," because that's kind of, you know, and she's at the channel she works for is BGBB TV News. So it's basically all the channels mixed in together. But she's, I don't know, where was I? I've drifted off into another, but I mean, the media are so complete. They are so, I was thinking, who's more guilty out of the government and the media and the health service? And I thought they're all on a par. They're all pretty much working in, you know, tandem.
To the point that we were saying about, you know, why this interview with Hancock is such a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, those of us that called the shots early on, you know, need, you know, like the people that mock us, they were like, oh yeah, because Facebook told you Bill Gates was bad. No, dude, somebody actually just happened to share the Pfizer documents on Facebook, or shared, you know, the interest holding, you know, on the Gates Foundation. Like, don't speak to me like you're the one without a brain cell. But I'm so sick of this. So I started thinking about why exactly would they have thought, let's go to Matt Hancock? Well, this is a real problem, because all of these guys are traitors to humanity, all of them.
Yes, I agree.
On TV, the media. I mean, I went off on GMB because they still used to, you know, why don't you get back on? I'm like, are you nuts? What is this headline? You guys are going to be hung up in the streets for this stuff. And I mean, like, come after me. Let's go. I mean, because at the end of the day, all of you guys that are repeating this horrible script, you're all going to be buried alive on those words, because the public have hold, like, there will be a tipping point where even the sleeping sheep wake up, and there will be revolution, right? And how that looks, hopefully it's not bonfires and pitchforks in the streets, but for all of those nutters that think that the people aren't capable, oh, check your head. There will be, even the English, even the perfectly polite, but, you know, perfect pear-shaped tones, all of that is going to go out.
I agree.
So I started thinking, this is exactly what the enemy would do. Let's find the biggest mouths and become likable. Let's distract the public with things that are coming out that are exciting. Britain's the hub of fintech. Britain's amazing for technology.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, God, dude, I remember Matt Hancock when he was talking about like cybersecurity, and he knew F all about that, and cyber skills with trying to be DCMS pony boy. Now he's the show pony for education skills, and then the show pony for, I mean, like, what hasn't Matt Hancock been paid to say? Okay,
Matt Cockhand. Yeah, I agree. And you know something? To me, it's like he's an obvious sociopath. You just look at him and you're like, oh my God. You know, when this is the thing that I can't, again, like you said, I cannot get my head around why they had him on. Because
they're going to start turning the narrative. It's not just going to be, they're going to start, you know, like, hey, Mr. Dellingpole, you know, they're going to start going to everybody. And Dellingpole's good. We love James. I mean, doesn't understand, bless him, but one day he will. But there are, you know, good people don't need explanation. They don't need, you know, they stand on their own, and you can tell by saying what they do.
Yes.
You know, felt awkward because I had never met any of you guys and I didn't ask for this. And then all of a sudden everyone knew who I was. Besides that, I mean, that's why I'm like, you guys don't actually know who I am, because I would have never, ever, ever put up with any of this ever.
Yes.
No, I didn't ask permission, never did. I mean, I'll ask this when I screw up. It does happen, but you know, like I'm not the kind of person that head down, toe the line, repeat the script, play by the rules. I mean, and I mean, that's actually what everything Boris, you know, the late Boris Johnson, the real Boris, loved about me. And anybody who's with him knows that is his career. He's always created this kind of a very eclectic, lively environment of people around him of all different life and brain thought, because he liked the, you know, what I don't think about, you think about. You just have to be the best at what you're thinking about. And you know, those are some of the strengths that I remember. But you know, this kind of stuff that now we're starting to see. Watch him. You know, down at London Tech Week. You know, Nadine Dorris. Oh, yay, tech. Tech makes everybody hard. Why? Because they think they're going to make lots of money. They've been doing this for years. You know, none of them understand this. I remember every politician, they don't get tech or what they're talking about with AI or the really, really scary parts of some of this stuff, nor do they understand the actual real opportunity. They've just been paid to read the script. So when I Matt Hancock show up fucking stage right, where you're like, oh God, when is the exit? You know, they didn't get rid of him. They just kept him over here. Yeah. Now, and like puppet, he comes back on.
He comes back in. And did you see like the little crypto? Did you see the little clip of him as well? The clip where James says, well, it would be good to talk about you know, liberty or something, or liberalism versus and then he kind of goes, and then Isabel Oakeshott goes, oh yes, I think no, he's just desperate to talk about lockdowns. Yeah, well, we'll have to agree to, she said we'll have to agree to disagree at the end. And James was like this. And I said on Twitter, I said, he looks like a shy Victorian bride, because he was kind of going, oh, I thought he was going to get his fan out. You know, it's like, you're talking to Matt Hancock. He should be on the floor with your foot on his fucking neck. And then you call the, you know, the Secret Service in. You don't just sit there going, like you're about to lose your virginity to him. I mean, it was, so Matt Hancock, and also, why didn't they ask, I mean, sorry, I'm now realizing I'm in that mind frame where I'm thinking, if Matt Hancock, if I was talking to him, why didn't they talk about the fact he owns a genome company? He owns, I think he actually owns shares or owns one. It's like, genomes, has any, you know, is that a bit of a clue to what his motivation was?
Well, considering he'll do whatever you tell. I mean, he'll be minister of the freaking month, you know, for whatever. This isn't even like a legitimate player in the fight that we're in. He was literally the show pony for murder, and that's you know, why are we sitting here wasting? Like, we need to get to the nuts and bolts of like how this government got infiltrated and has been run by a shadow government with this that have been off, like delegated. You know, I'll tell you now, as much as I, you know, adored the man at one point, there's no way he could have put out, he doesn't have the gumption. He doesn't have the character. He's not cut from this cloth. So this is why resolutely they did something to him. And remember when I first spoke, I was like, do you know anything about cult rituals? Because there's something like they do before you become leader. Like there's no become leader without doing something.
Oh yeah. Usually at Bilderberg, they do that. They do that sort of initiation thing. You know, I mean, my husband used to say, these people are chosen. They're chosen for a reason. They wouldn't choose you and me because we go, fuck off. We're not doing that. They don't want people who, you know, so they know people have to be malleable. I mean, you know, you know all this from being around certain people.
And he cared more about the endorsement and the buy-in. So does Matt Hancock. In fact, Matt Hancock lives to suck off anybody that endorses him. I mean, he will do whatever you want as long as you talk nice to him. Because if it's me, he just shuts down. I mean, this is how they all are. This cat said, like, I'm a, you know, world leader. Oh, please.
Yeah, please. You're a little boy. You're a little boy. You keep your socks on during sex. Definitely Matt Hancock keeps his socks on, doesn't he? With Gina. Oh fucking hell! I mean, and that's I mean, you're right. It's like but there's so many Matt Hancocks, isn't there? At the moment, there's so many of them. Like you said, they're like the Manchurian Candidate.
And the more we see them come on, watch them do a piece on Hillary Clinton, or the secret life of Ghislaine Maxwell, like the emotional side of why she was so. I mean, they're going to start, because they need to keep that indoctrinated brainwashing sheep, believe their intentions were there good from the holy beginning. I mean,
exactly. You're right. It is so. I mean, it's terrifying. It is terrifying. It's like trying to think of a good example. It is like a religious cult that they are all part of. I'm trying to remember. Like when the Spanish Inquisition. When they used to go round, and these guys believed in everything. They believed in it all. That you could just basically go in, or you could burn people at the stake. Burn people alive. This is the kind of shit that we are heading towards. And I think people now, if you meet people who say, oh, but surely that's not going to happen, go, I can't speak to you. If you don't know after 2.5 years where this fucking track is, and when they were all like celebrating, oh, the mandates are over, when this was the Together group, like Alan Miller and all those going, oh, thank heavens, let's drink champagne because of Alex. I was like, oh my God, you're so naive. They've just fucking started. This is just
sit down, little. Yeah.
Totally. This is just the taste. They're doing a little like, oh, I just wonder how much we can, tweak the little people, on the ground, and that's what makes me angry, because it's like, Jesus Christ, these people are actually hindering what we're doing, what we're saying by doing that. They're sort of they're wasting time.
Yeah, well, I mean, the government contracts and the way the government works with its groupies and keeping them sweet so that everybody endure. We saw this with recent votes, where I'm like, what? They all voted for it, but it's, then I get this, well, whoever replaces him will be worse. I'm like, what? Can we stop like defeatist attitude where when he goes, the whole shit show goes? This is why all of them are like, oh, keep him up there. Absolutely. Go, you. They're insane. And I'm like, one of the MP's wife has cancer, and I'm like, what did they do to, like, what did they promise you? What are they, like, these are, oh, I wanted to ask you, like, okay, so a few years ago when I came over for the scandal in 2019, I was invited to dinner at Oxford, and it was, now that I think about who was there, I probably would have just thrown up and left, but it was a bunch of young leaders from the right?
Okay. Yeah.
No, but I loved my friend that brought me, and like my other friend who was a young leader which he was going through the program, but he and I were like on a lot of issues, like just he got it. Felt like he at least had a brain cell. So they're all at this dinner, and then one of these social entrepreneurs, basically they get funding to do these social enterprises. So not only are they placated to believe that because they went to Oxford, they're of some entitled superior, but they're all entrepreneurs, which they're not, because they were given money for some silly, like, let's make crayons the new fuel of, I mean, just like the most crazy, they're all kind of new, you know what I mean? Like they're Ethiopian restaurant. It was all kind of, right? And so one of the Oxford professors gets up and he said something, gave this speech, and I'll never forget, because he was like, oh, the embarrassment we felt at Oxford, we have turned over more prime ministers, and look at what they've done to us. They've brought us through Brexit. They've just, and I listened to him where he was like, what's happened to, we're ashamed that we have put out all these prime ministers that can't think for themselves, and at the time, being under the spotlight of everything and still kind of in shock of, and still believing the man I knew was actually the man parading around, because, at some point he wasn't. I stood up and I said, look, with all due respect, I don't know all your prime ministers, but I've met two, and I knew two by name, like, and that was David Cameron and Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, that after talking, these men do know how to think clearly or think deeply. In fact, that's all they're trained to do when they go to these schools is debate, speak poetically, but they do train. Now, the question that you're asking, what I think you really want to ask your audience is, what the hell happens to their brain by the time they take leadership? Because whatever intentions were once there, whatever, moderate, classical, libertarian, conservative, that goes away, the bidding. And so everybody that's like, labor or, conservative, when, none of that actually matters. It's the two sides of the same bird. And I'm just curious, did you notice that, with the people that you've been around? Because I mean, you've been around similar circles, the same kind of like exiting of all logical thought when people rise the ranks.
Absolutely. I tell you, actually, my husband used to say that people that go to Oxford and Cambridge, when they go, they are it's instilled into them that they will be better than everyone else, that they will know more things, they will be able to argue. And actually, the truth of the matter is that a lot of these schools, a lot of these universities do not teach proper critical thinking, free thinking, and actually, with all due respect to anyone who may have been to at those universities, the most interesting people I've met usually have not gone, shall we say, I mean, with a few exceptions like James Dunning-Pole, but they don't create creative, what's the word? Minds that are expanded. That's something that I've definitely observed over my time. That it's very much, it's weird. It does produce kind of cookie cutter thinkers. And actually, what's interesting, I did a podcast with a girl, Emma Webb, who's very Oxbridge, quite young, very. So we did this show together with Anne Widdecombe, also Oxbridge. I was the only one not Oxbridge. And people, you said to me, they used to comment on the things. They used to go, God, so much more than these two. And I was like, I know, it's incredible, isn't it? Just reading and thinking for myself. But it was kind of, so back to the Oxbridge thing. I found that, like I said to this girl, Emma, I said, that was it. I was doing the show and with the guy that hosts the podcast. And I was talking about China. I was talking about China, the Fauci, WHO, then the rollout of the jab. I was talking about it as a kind of narrative arc about sort of like where it had all, without getting into making it too complex. And then I could see the guy hosting the podcast doing to Emma, going, get her off it. He was doing this kind of like, when people do this with their finger, like, come on, get her off it. And a couple of weeks later, they said, oh yeah, we're not doing the podcast anymore. I thought, you fucking cowards. It's because I've stepped outside your lovely, cozy Oxbridge Overton window. I've gone, oh, look, what's over there? And you've gone, yeah, we don't want that. We only want you to think freely, but about stuff that we think freely. And actually afterwards, Emma said, I said, so what do you think about what I said? And she went, oh, I think it's too obvious a theory. And I just thought, oh my God. And you went to Oxford. Jesus Christ. So they're not very impressive, to be honest with you. I don't find anyway, Do
you think this is why the trauma takes place with some of these kids, like where you see lads get too crazy at night and then they start, then there's stuff that happens with women, like do you see that this kind, and then, is it like, what was done to them then expressed elsewhere, some, mommy issues? Because I'll tell you, there was definitely mommy issues.
Mommy issues.
On all the people we're talking about, guys.
Yeah, you're so right.
I'll just tell you that.
I tell you something, I've met a lot of public school boys in my time. And the thing that I find about public school boys is they are terrified of women. and they don't. It's really weird. I don't know whether it's to do with them having matrons at school. So they see any woman that sort of has their own mind and is kind of like sexual, is like kind of like comfortable in their body. Most boys I know who've been to public school will be like, oh, you can see they're visibly sort of like they don't know how to handle that. Which, so I think and it is definitely instilled. Yeah, there's a lot of mommy issues. Crying to matron, clinging on to teddy bear, and not always. I mean, it's really bad. Doing their Latin homework, with a torch under the. It's a different world, Jen. It's a different world. These people, and then they go to Oxford, then they do PPE, then they do this, and then they wear the right suit. There is nothing free thinking about these people whatsoever. Nothing. And I think that even if they wanted to, they probably couldn't.
Yeah, I asked him once. I said, "Do you really want to be prime minister?" Because I knew what the public said about it. That they were, the man who's made his whole career, exerting power and going for what. And he said, "You know that I'm just a really competitive person, and some things just have to be," or some really bizarre question like that. Yeah, because I've never believed that he actually wanted it. I believe that something else was there that made, he was like, well, he took a moment before answering and almost and well, I'm a very competitive person, and something just have to be. So I was like,
God, it's like Boris is in the room, except
one time
far more attractive.
I did like an impression. He was like, "Is that me?" And he had such a kick out of it. And I was like, "Oh man, I totally forgot who I was with." I'm like, "Whoops,"
Whoopsie.
Yeah.
But
I haven't. You're.
That's funny. But what was I going to say about because I think you're right that there is this idea with Boris that it was kind of ordained, that there was something that he was meant to be. It was kind of like a Greek I suppose tragedy, let's be honest, nowadays anyway.
He had the character for it, you guys, not at all because he had the character for it. He did assumption.
Yeah.
And that's said with love, not scorn. So F off, trolls.
Yeah. And I think I told you when we spoke, I met Stanley, his dad, and I kind of regret not being hard on him. It was on GB News because his obvious love for China, being a cinephile, his obvious love for China and wanting to wipe out the global population, basically depopulate, just emanated from him. I thought, oh my God, you're really really unpleasant. I've met some unpleasant people in my, but you know something? Nigel Farage said to me, I said, what's he like, Stanley Johnson? This was in the studio, backstage of the studio. And Nigel said, he's charming, but he's wrong about everything. And I thought, that's a really good way of summing up Stanley Johnson. But he kind of gave me the creeps a little bit, Stanley.
Well, when we think about how children, this goes into, this just struck me as all kind of mommy issues, all kind of trauma at home.
Yeah.
Not to go it, but this kind of stuff, broken children grow into broken adults and they spend the rest of their life trying to pick up pieces because they're never actually made whole. They're just broken.
Yeah.
Sounds harsh, but and a lot of people are, we all carry bits of that. That's not that's being human, you guys. Yeah. But I think this is what we're dealing with, is finally seeing these monsters in their real, I found Stanley nothing but charming, but I didn't have, long in-depth conversations about, depopulation with I wasn't those kind of
that wasn't really on the agenda when you had Sherry with him one night. But but you're right, public schools were very cruel, especially British public schools, as you know, Eton, Harrow. They were, beds of, beds is the wrong phrase, just full of abuse, children who were left there at a young age, by their very cold parents who were like, oh, run along, Johnny, we haven't got time, darling. Just learn Latin, learn Greek, get on with matron, and then you'll be, then you'll become, I don't know, you'll run the company when you're older. All this stuff has happened, is part of the fabric of society. These men who grow up, I don't think it's quite the same anymore in the next generation, but men that went to public school who were just sort of, and then on to Oxford, who just haven't seen life. They haven't really kind of lived it, they've been sheltered, and it's kind of sad, really. But
the other thing it produces is their ability to be able to shut off with any kind of empathy or things like that quite easily, because they've had to do it, watch parents go on holiday and stay in their schools and miss out on Christmases or birthdays or things that we all take for normal as plebs.
Yes.
Actually the detriment to them later on means they're hard as nails now and they don't care. It's easy to. Yeah.
And Matt Hancock, sorry, going back to that, our favorite, he's definitely a sociopath. I mean, you can tell there's no. Remember when he cried on TV? Remember when he cried when they first rolled out the jabs? He was like, I was like, oh my God, you've learned how to cry. That's not a natural, like, I'm naturally just kind of, the tears are coming to my eyes. You've actually learned how to do it because you've watched somebody.
Even Amber Heard was better.
Amber Heard. Oh, fucking hell. Jesus God.
I mean, as of a 14 or you're a teenage son, would you send him away to boarding school? I mean, because they seem like children at this age. How could you send a boy that young?
That young. And they used to send them at 7, Jen. They were boys. Like my uncle went to Harrow, 7 years old. That's packed off. They have the little trunk. They're like, they're, and of course the predators that roam the halls in these places. But it was all covered up, it's like, oh no, don't tell on Mr. So-and-so, because then it'll be, you know what I mean? So there was this complicity throughout, which I said goes right up to the in fact, my husband said once he met Prince Charles, because my husband was in the territorial army, so they met, so he met Prince Charles once, and he said Prince Charles looked at him too long in the eye. He didn't quite wink at my husband, but obviously, and my husband was like 18, 19, and my husband said he definitely, it was a come on. So that's an exclusive for your show. Prince Charles is a nonce.
Did he tell you any more about the royals?
About the royals. I was trying to think. Oh yeah, he said. Terry said that he that people, because he spoke to lots of really interesting people. In fact, he worked for Steve Norris. Did you ever meet Steve Norris? He was the Minister for Transport. I think he was a Minister for Transport. This is way back though. It's quite a while back. Anyway, very, very nice man, like proper normal guy. So Terry said that in his circles, the rumors were that Prince Charles had been caught with a member of the household in the middle of, shall we say, and he wasn't stoking the fire with a big stick. He was doing something else.
It's not the guy that was pictured climbing out of a window naked in
Buckingham Palace. I think that might have been a bit obvious.
Sorry, have you not seen that, Jen?
What happened with that video? Like, how come no one, like, did it just run and then everybody?
And everyone went, shit.
That's normal.
Do you know what? The amount of times stories are about to break. I mean, you know this, must know this, where you go, oh, Michael Gove, any minute now that it's going to come out about him being bisexual and taking coke. It was like on the cusp of it. And then it just goes, it disappears. I don't know whether it's an injunction or, like a, just,
I don't know, but is it a toe in the line kind of thing? Is it a little bit of information that, and they go, oh yeah, remember where I am now, and put themselves back in the box?
And put themselves back in the box, yeah. Either that, or there's, people know things about each other, so they go, well, if you reveal that, then I'll reveal this, and they go, oh no, not those pictures in Lanzarote, shit. Okay, then I'll do. Yeah, so there's it's terrible, and so I've never known corruption. I mean, obviously, all governments are corrupt, all politicians, but I've never known it in such plain sight. It's like, hi, we're just corrupt. We're literally just the worst of the worst, you know. Good luck at the next worst of the worst. Good luck at the next election, guys. The choice is cunt or cunt.
If they came out saying that. I mean, Vicki and I always talk about.
Oh, hello, sweetheart. Oh, I hope you didn't hear that word. The C word.
This is my little one who's
sweetheart, you've got a lovely dress on. I love that dress. It's a princess dress.
Yay.
Hey, sweetheart, what's her name? What's your name?
It's Madeline.
Madeline. Oh, you're gorgeous, Madeline. I'm jealous of that dress. I want it now.
Yeah, right. Although this is not the temperature to be walking around in this heat. She still wears it.
No, it's quite a lot of taffeta for this time.
Run along, darling. So on that note, so when Vicki and I always Vicki, and you know, Vicki says things like, I can't even imagine, but I'm like, no, really, I need you to imagine this. Like, how does it happen? Is it, you know, because I've explained to her before, and I, you know, talked about this, maybe even to you before, where like I've been in an event or a party, and this will be like in a back room from the main party, and then everyone's like, oh, well, you know, we all should just be drinking the blood of a, you know, little boy. And, you know, ha, 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 ha. And you're like,
yeah,
what? You know?
Yeah.
Do you, I mean, like, is that how it seems? Like, you know, because I think about some of these events where you go with Francis Maud or, you know, other, like other creepy creepers of the past, you know, and they're like, what are you doing later, Jennifer? Do you want to have drinks? You know, and then the minute you leave the room, they say something really like, and you're like, did you just see that? Like the most inappropriate, like, I just want to take you upstairs. And, you know, they'll say like, what? You know, and this is part of the grooming process, because you're like, I was just inside and you were like a really big deal. You know, you're the guest of honor, you know, whoever this politician guy is. And now we've come out and now there's like an expectation. And now, you know, like, if I go back with, you know, so it's, you know, I always want to break it down for people how it goes. Like, you know, do you get invited to Lake Como for this great fill-up party, and then you ask your security detail to stay home, and then on that weekend you do something really, really naughty, like you just don't want, you know, your whole career what is it? Do they drug you? You know, I'd love to know what you picked up over this, because it's really hard trying to explain each and every little time, but this happens every day, you know, and for this many people to be inside of it, there's a lot of blackmail, bribery. I mean, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this.
Yeah, blackmail, bribery. I mean, good God, Christ, where do I think, to be honest with you, a lot of people find the devil more attractive than God, ultimately, you know. And by the way, for all your lovely viewers, I am by no means a shy retiring violet. I mean, I have partied hard in my time, so I'm not somebody who goes, oh no, I wouldn't dare touch drugs, or I wouldn't do this, or whatever. You know, I've done that. I have no qualms about talking about it, but I do think that that especially men in power, and women as well in power, can also use their power in a kind of, in a sort of like, oh well, I know that it's almost like they sort of get turned on by the fact that they're with you in this situation, and they know that, you know, they could pretty much do what they wanted, you know. And it's like a sometimes I sort of think it's, I mean, not for all men, but men in power, it's like a what's the word? Once they get the taste of it, they kind of think, oh, how much further can I push it? It's like a kind of, it's like a game, you know, let's see. But you're right, you know, I've heard people say really weird shit, you know, stuff where they're perfectly nice and blah blah, and going, oh yes, you know, and I'm a very decent person, and I'm a grandee, you know, I'm a Tory or whatever, a Tory or Labour grandee, and then they'll sort of they will sort of say, oh, I tell you what, I was with this filly last night, and fucking I was buggering her right up the arse. You're like, what?
Yeah.
What? I hope there's no children around when I said that. But genuinely, it's a kind of Tourette's. It's like a kind of, you know, I can't believe I've just had to get it out. Because a lot of these people, you know, that's why I think I would say to recommend to a lot of people, if you want to like have a drink, or obviously not if you're like going to get addicted to it, but if you want a drink, or you want to maybe take recreational drugs or whatever, have sex with it, then do it. Because if you don't sort of like do these things, you know, when you're sort of like younger, then it is going to come out when you're sort of like a Francis Maud, whatever it is. I mean, you know what I mean? It is going to come out in the most unexpected ways, because it's like it's suppressed down there. It's like, oh, I just have to say it. You know,
Abby, I was part of the Royal Thames Yacht Club.
Oh my God.
It's older than my country. I mean, it was so, and
I'm glad you said country, not something else then. I was like, what kind of show is this?
But I mean, yeah, like I loved sailing and I loved this place, but I mean, there was some dark stuff that happened in the, you know, at the events, or like, you know, and there, it wasn't, it had nothing to necessarily do with the club, but like just the kind of stuffed upbringing. And then when you get them out, you know, or after a few drinks or what, you know, I mean, like there was one guy, I remember, he's like, oh, there's nothing like the hunt of killing a man. And I was like, you're not talking about war, are you? Like, no, he literally said, like, drop this bombshell about how great it was to hunt men. I mean, you're like, what?
You're not talking about war, are you? No, I'm not. Jesus. But it's true though, you know, but it's really odd. I mean, a friend of mine once though, she said, he said about his own father. That was it. We were just chatting and he went, do you know, years ago, my father picked up a hitchhiker and brought them home. And then this friend of mine said, do you know what? I think my father might have killed her.
What?
Great. Anyway, anyone for more? But it was just like one of these weird, you know, things that people just go, what? Why would you think that? I mean, did you find a body? Was there, like, were they gone the next day? Was there a strange smell coming from the cellar? I mean, what clues are you getting here? But it's just such a weird. Yeah, I think my father might have killed her. Right. Wait, I don't know what to say to that. Apart from call the police. But there is this, isn't it? There's this strange. But people do, I think, sometimes say things. Sorry, we've got away slightly from the power hungry thing.
Well, they're trying to bait you. What I found was like, it was a way to like, because like one guy said something really uncomfortable, you know, at one of the regattas. I think it was like the Henry like regatta. He's like, I'd love to take you in the last, and I was like, you would never last. Let's face it, you won't last past 10 seconds. And he was like, you're right, but my tongue would. And you're like, whoa, you just publicly in front of all these people, and you're like some old man in a suit. I mean, but what they're doing is they're baiting. Like, is this possible? Is this
a remote possibility that I could get my tongue down your cleavage, Jennifer? It is. It's little boys pushing going, how can I wonder if I just did this and I'm a naughty, oh no, matron's here and I'm going to get a slap on the wrist. Because they're little boys, these guys.
Yes. Or they'll, like, I met Michael Fallon at a dinner and he's like, you don't want to talk to me. You never want me to come to your events. And I was like, wait, what? Are you moaning right now? Like, look at you serious? He goes, I'm the best sugar daddy you'll ever have. Something like really just, I mean, just appropriate where you're like, wait, what are we talking about? You know, like I actually, so, I mean, and I've spoken to a few Tory girls about this, you know, different events and things that I've, you know, a lot of them like at the time, because so many are like, you know, just pedantic about, you know, finding their future husband, or, you know, like they go to these things specifically to gain traction, but really they become passed around the party. Now, I was passed around. I mean, I was like blacklisted. Like like no one.
Don't get it, Jen. She'll give you a right hook.
And I think because I remember a few of the MPs saying things like, you know, I'm not as young or as American as, you know, and I was just like, what are you actually saying? What do you know? Like, and what are you not I mean, because there were just these spoken things. And so I realized really early on, I was inside an establishment, like, not just, I'm not in Kansas anymore. You know, I'm in the UK. Like, I was inside a very incestual little bubble, whether I knew about people or not. This was the big, you know, and that's why I always try to, you know, whenever I talk to people now, I mean, I have some really good friends still within the party and still related to these people in power. I mean, this has just been nonstop lie after lie after lie told to the public. And I'm the one that's going to be sued for defamation or the threats to me. And I'm like, bring it, except it's true, you know, and that's why, I mean, what the hell is going on here? Why can't people just be honest about this? I mean, and now we've got children involved, and you know, I wanted to kind of have a funny moment on some of this stuff because, you know, the root core, we were talking about trauma and, you know, how people kind of prey on vulnerable people. So it was good to have a laugh with you on some of these kind of crazy things, because I'm always telling Vicki, I'm like, I was there. They said the weirdest thing, you know, like, you know, I'll mention something I saw, or like some of these people don't eat real human or real meat. They have to eat human meat only. I mean, this is like openly known in show business. And, you know, I'm the crazy one for mentioning this to people. And I'm like, you don't understand. They can only eat spinach and special freeze-fried fetuses or wherever they come from. But I'm like, I'm of not know. And so then people are like, well, what do you know about that? I'm like, look, that's all I know. I was an intern once. I did I ran up to Chelsea and 28th Street and back. You know, like, you start learning what you're seeing, repetition of, you know, what is presented versus what really goes on. You start, you know, once upon a time, I was one of these stupid models that would show up for like launch parties or things at like, you know, like the Playboy Mansion, and they wanted, you know, so I would go, but there was like a whole thing on that East End wing that you wouldn't want to be anywhere near. And then like, you didn't want to be friends with everybody because you just didn't know who was going to put anything in your drink. Like, you know, there's things that and we can't talk about it because everybody wants the endorsement from everybody else. So if you're speaking out about it, then you're the quack. Then you know that.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, I think there are two types of people that speak out, and then people that will go to their graves thinking, I should have spoken out, you know? And what a terrible regret to have. How awful, you know, to be like on your deathbed thinking, shit, all the times I could have stood up for somebody, or, you know, spoken out or done this or done that when I knew it was all wrong and I didn't. And ultimately, you know, then you meet your maker, and then they go, well, why didn't you say anything? You know, it's too late then. It's too late.
There's that scene in Utopia where the guy, the actor that's playing the health minister, comes in to the women who are controlling this bioweaponization of this virus. And they tell him, and there's this great moment where he responds and he says, you know, I can't say that. I'm the minister. That'd be political suicide. To which they respond, we don't need you to be prime minister. We need you to say this. And then when he said no, suddenly here's the laptop. Johnny, raise your hand. And then there's a woman shopping with a guy behind her who's obviously following her. So I love those moments in the show Utopia. If you haven't seen the 2004 version of Channel 4, the UK version, not the stupid US one, but the UK, those moments are so bloody. They're so well articulated because they show just those little tiny, you know, where maybe the guy didn't start off being a bad guy. Yeah, he had no dick or no spine, but he wasn't necessarily corrupt to his core. But then he starts agreeing to things, and then he has to roll out the, you know, and then it becomes this. And so I'm still fascinated because it starts with the weird things at the party, right? It starts with, oh, this is just, you know, Andrew's 40th birthday party in Germany in a castle. It's totally fine. You can just come. And you show up and everyone's an S&M. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doing all kinds of, wait, what is this party?
What the fuck is this? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, just have a little bit of fun. You know, this actually happens all the time. This is really common. You know, you get all these like, and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna drink over here, whatever that is.
Yeah.
You know, but
yeah.
This is how we, you know, and for people that are like, how do you even end up in situations like this? Trust me, most of the people that do, it was presented as something else, or, you know, an after party after the palace part, you know, or something. So it starts, and then then you find yourself in a position where you meet someone or you saw something.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why, and now where we're at, now is not the time to dig up all the old skeletons out of, you know, like every evil wrongdoing. We know that there's people there. We need to find the way to focus on the facts and the data and stop what's happening right now, which is why never pick up a genocidal murderer as your second podcast guest.
Exactly. And then try and justify it. Like going, oh yeah, because the next time we're going to, do you know what? Fuck off. There won't be a next time. And also, you don't have the wherewithal, you don't have the personalities to grill somebody like that. So it's pointless, you know. And
they have nothing. You have nothing on them, so they have no reason to tell you the truth.
Precisely.
None.
Yeah.
Who
exactly.
Owns them, right? Who they sell their soul to? You really think you're going to stand a chance to that? No. The way you defend that is with prayer and an exorcism. You don't, not an execution, an exorcism.
Execution. But you know, Isabel Oakeshot's married to Richard Tice. He's the leader of the Reform Party. Sorry, not married to, lives with Richard Tice. He's the leader of the Reform Party. One of the new parties. Yeah. Very establishment. So they live together. Isabel.
They're looking for political buy-in and build.
Absolutely. Yeah. Building, you know, the blocks. I've just seen, by the way, it's really dark. I was going to quickly turn the light on. Give me a sec. Give me a sec, guys.
Yeah, so Richard Tice was heavily involved with the Brexit Party. I don't know if you know that, Jem.
Yeah, well, they know that people have expired on the political scene at this point. Like they've lost patience. You know, most conservatives, I don't know how you can't look at the Conservative Party and think that that's what, you know, was the ruling party for the last 200 whatever years. So there's a lot of people looking for new answers.
Hi guys. Sorry, it was literally, I was like, Christ, I look like a vampire on that screen.
Darling.
That's better. I think I've got sunburn. So I've only been out for 10 minutes today in the sun. Oh, that's better. Yes, I can see my face now.
Vicki, how are we doing on the channel? Or do we still have an audience or people listening, or anybody have questions?
Yeah, so we've got about 60 people still in the room at the moment. I've got a bunch of questions if you're happy for me to go through. We'll get quite a lot, obviously, more questions coming later on, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just stuck to the chair, sorry. It's not good.
Nice. Is it that hot? It is actually really hot, isn't it?
Literally
Did you hear when I got up, there was a kind of...
That was me.
I love this. Three girls out on the Raz.
I can't even think.
What's the first question for Abi?
So just having a quick circle back, as Saki would have said. Censorship levels on GB News. I don't know if you're allowed to tell us. Were you censored or not, or were there any lines you could not cross, or any names you could? We don't expect you to mention them, but were you?
No. There was no official censorship. Sorry, when I say official censorship, there was no. I put it this way: on one of Dan Wootton's shows, I did make a joke about, you know, Gina, Matt Hancock's, the woman he went off with, and she was going to go on holiday, and this was back when the jabs, the vaccines had started to be rolled out, the jabs, and I said, well, she can go on holiday because she's had a tiny prick. We're talking obviously about Matt Hancock, and Dan Wootton went. You could see him literally, his buttocks went. I could actually hear the sound of his arse go in panic, because of course you can't. That's not the kind of thing you say on a news program. Anyway, so I got away with quite a lot for quite a long time, and then I think they started clamping down just in general with things. But to be honest with you, the only thing that they were really funny about was the jabs. Right. Was the jabs. You could pretty much say anything you wanted about anyone, and then the jabs was like, oh no, right, I think you've crossed we're going to go off that. topic. Really strange. And all of them, of course, were selling them, going, I've had 2 jabs. I've been double jabbed. I was like, oh God. Anyway, so I hope that answers your question. It was pretty free.
I almost wonder if that was kind of half of the problem. Well, I know we've said James Melville shouldn't have had Matt Hancock on at all, but his reluctance at true questioning is going back to that. I don't want to find out how wrong I am with what I've got in my body now. You know, a lot of people have hit that, like you said, that wall.
That wall, and I can I sympathize with that, because I mean, who would, that's terrible cognitive, like, you know, having to walk around going, shit, I've got something in my body and I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's doing. I mean, that's awful, isn't it?
Yeah, my mum's, we've got a friend who's had 2 AstraZeneca and a Pfizer, who's now said, I'm not having a booster because, you don't know what you're putting in your body, and you're kind of like,
well, yeah, you've just done it.
And we don't know how it works together.
Yes, exactly.
That was what we were saying.
I know. Kathy Crunt has a face when people do that. She goes,
that's the one we all lips. Call, isn't it? Cat bum lips. That's what we're all like.
Cat bum. Anyway, next question.
Would you consider setting up a Telegram channel too? You and Jen are great warriors. Was another.
Oh, well, I've got a Telegram, but I do know something. I'm on so many. I'm on more platforms than King's fucking Cross at the moment. So to be honest with you, it's partly lazy, but also because I'm on other platforms. But I will look at Telegram, because I mean I think it's great, you know. But it's just, to be honest with you, I haven't really investigated it properly. So
I think a regular powwow between you guys would be amazing.
Oh, I'd love it.
Oh
my. That'd be so cool. Yes.
We could just share stories of
oh my God, share this like imagine if it was ever released into the public. We'd have to go into hiding, Jen.
I know. I'm going to probably get 3 lawsuits up the back of this. I mean, get in line, people that want to lawsuit me.
Lawsuit me. Yeah, it's true.
Work, I swear. I got like people, I'm like, you're still living? I mean, what? People can't stand me speaking right now. So look, what I said was not true.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
Someone's said about the Matt Hancock and his 50 grand bill to Bong Bong Manila.
Oh yes, Bong Bong Manila. I think I know who that might be. Who sent that question in?
With a password protected secret menu at the beginning of lockdown.
Yes. I don't know an awful lot about this. I've got to be honest. I'm not even going to wing it by saying this has been explained to me by the person. Is it S?
Yes.
Yes, I won't say who it is who's watching, but I will what's the word? There's so much stuff going out around the moment that, to be honest, sometimes when people say something to me, I'll go, oh yes, I've vaguely heard about that, but I'm not going to pretend that I know all the details, because then I'll look like a bit of a dick.
Don't know if we want to. It's the secret menu.
Yeah, the Bong Bong secret menu.
It's secret menu.
You want a fucky? Is it that kind of secret menu? Love you long time.
Pizza.
Right.
Maybe. Anyway.
Maybe. With all the toppings.
Yeah.
And bottomings. Yes. Anyway, I'm getting the gist of this story, even though I don't know what it is.
With lots of very popular with all of it. But some of these women that would go, I mean, the men, they would purposely leave their wives at home for what happens after the spectator, the party. And I mean, it happens in planes. I mean, it's just like what happens at Tory party conference stays there.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of these events, not just that one, but that was one that I remember specifically.
Yeah.
I mean,
and was that the S&M? Was that the S&M one? BDSM?
Well, there's I mean, also like let's talk about the Cotswolds parties. I mean, the weird ass bonfires out there and the helicopters of drugs. Oh, I'm going to be in such trouble for talking. But I mean, like, this is what they do. These media moguls, they hold these massive parties. I mean, if you're pretty, again, if you're on their groupie list, whatever that is, whatever you are there for, they'll let you know if you're allowed to go. Like, I was invited to a hunting party in the Cotswolds. I'm not convinced it was Fox. I mean, I never really had it spelled out to me, but I'm like, what the hell kind of party was this? You know, I still think that, and I ask everyone I know in the Cotswolds, have you been on one of these parties?
Well, like, what you mean it wasn't hunting fox?
Mm-mm.
You think it was something else they were hunting?
Oh, I mean, there's all kinds of weird. You know, they do that. They pay. There's like an elitist. It's you know, climate change or whatever. You know, vegan agenda, whatever. And they these ultimate thrill parties where. Yeah, we're going to be kicked off this platform.
Yeah.
Vicki, probably find a place.
Basically, anywhere where the devil is enjoying himself, they will be as well. Because at a certain point, human beings, whether we like it or not, whatever faith you have, once you cross a line, you will meet the devil. I mean, you will come face to face with Lucifer, and that's when you know you've gone too far, essentially.
Once you're there, you're there, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Can it get any worse, so to speak?
Yeah.
Ugh.
But I think some people can be anointed and they wear the armor. And when Lucifer finds them, he is scared shitless of them. And some people, I don't know what exactly, I feel like this has been the way, I mean, because I grew up in Hollywood around monsters. Right. And then I came to, you know, London, and I felt like, oh gosh, these are nothing. These are invertebrate jellies compared to where I was, just in the den of thieves, you know.
Yeah, I bet.
Looking back, just because I was cultured or surrounded and exposed to these things, I would never want my daughter. I mean, when I think about some of the calls when I would call my mom, like, Mom, you know, and she's like, well, you just need to make it work. Or you just need to, you know, and they're like, you know, keep working hard, you know, like, no, did you hear what I just said? Like, you know, unless you sell your soul and throw away all moral integrity, like confetti, you won't get anywhere. And I banging my head against, you know, so I remember just getting, you know, going to modeling, and you think that you're going to a modeling casting call, and it ends up being some casting for trafficking. Orgy. Yeah, like so you can show up as a party model, and you are paid one rate to serve drinks, and then you're paid another rate to stand. They're like, oh, it's just topless. You're just going topless. It's okay, Jen. It's no big deal. Yeah. But actually, you're not just going topless, because then you're part of the group that agreed to go topless. So then you go to the room where all the things happen. You know what I mean? Like how it kind of goes like this.
Yes.
And so I feel like we should be talking about this stuff to make people more aware, to get rid of the stigma that, you know, yes, okay, not everybody wants to talk about adrenochrome or oxidizing, you know, weird, you know, like that kind of stuff. But at the same time, ignore the fact that this is what goes on, and the altering, the sacrifice, you know, sacrificial worship of, you know, pharma by like giving your kid on an altar to some false prophet. I mean, it's just, there's so many biblical references to what we're, you know, so parents think that their kids are safe or they're doing the right thing, but really what you're doing is laying them on an altar to the, you know, to the devil. I mean, like literally their soul is now watched, or, you know, whereas I feel very strong about talking about all of this, because I want every parent to know really the real informed consent here, which goes so much more than just the science, that there's a real spiritual connection out here with evil. And if you by you denouncing that you don't believe in a God or whatever is really irrelevant, because the people that are out to get you very much do. And you cannot have evil without good. And this is, you know, and so one thing on this channel, because everyone's like, I don't see, you know, and nothing's happening. We're all just, you know, waiting. This is so terrible, blah, 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 blah. But I'm sitting there going, actually, no, every single day, death by 1,000 cuts. We sit there and we just, you know, stand back, and we're resilient. You know, we call them out for the WHO treaty. We call them out, you know, we just keep pushing back, because everybody thinks, oh, it's so terrible. You understand that they already had a plan where we were already meant to be locked down, you know, perpetually, that we were going, you know, like they were not ready for the big mouths. They weren't ready for us. No, Vicki, they weren't ready for the people that were standing up and saying, you know, but this is why it enrages me that we have to play lukewarm besties with those that want to keep, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree. To me, and I've used this word. I've told James Melville myself on Twitter. I've said because he said this is the road less traveled. You know, he quoted that Robert Frost. He's always quoting poems. He thinks he's the only person who knows the poem, and I'm like, the road less traveled, for fuck's sake. I mean, fucking 4-year-old knows that poem. Jesus Christ. Anyway, but he acts like he's the poet laureate. Oh yes, I've just discovered this poem. I don't know if you know it. Yeah, we know it. Thanks for patronizing us. Anyway, and he's talking about the road less traveled, and I put underneath that, I said, but the reason that people don't travel down the road that you travel down is because it's the road of the collaborator.
That's a perfect way of saying it.
Funnily enough, he didn't. I'm very surprised he hasn't blocked me actually, but he is a collaborator. And I'm sorry, I don't care what anyone says. Like you said, the lukewarm bestie. Oh, let's have Matt Hancock on. You know, I think I made a joke about, you know, who's next on your podcast, the ghost of Stalin, talking about his moustache, his mother, and the price of vodka. Because that is the level, you know what I mean? It's not like this guy, it's not like he was like, oh, quite controversial about Brexit, or, you know, said a few things. This guy watched while people were murdered in care homes, in hospitals. He stopped cancer treatments. He rolled out a jab, which he knows full fucking well has not been tested on humans. So he is a murdering piece of shit. And anything else, if you disagree with that, then you're our enemy. I mean, there's no like, oh, maybe that's not the case. No, it is the case. So.
Oh, Abby, and when you know who said you need a higher intelligence in order to understand the war we are fighting, I was like, do not patronize me, buddy.
Yeah,
you know,
I remember. Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
That
yeah.
Who the hell are you? I mean, this guy comes from
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and this is what I mean. And then everybody stands to defend him. Oh, fuck off, Jennifer, with your pseudo radicalism. Are you what?
What? Nothing pseudo about it. You're the pseuds. These people, though, you're right. They all, and you know something that's been like this in history, you know, where people value their own, you know, their social standing more, you know, they're sort of like who they know, famous people, celebrities, blah blah. But at the end of the day, when all the dust settles, we're going to be looking out and seeing who's naked in the sea when the water goes down, and it ain't going to be you and me. We're going to be on the beach, you know, with the good people, and then people like James Melville will be like naked when the water goes down, and all these people exposed, you know. You just think
the groupies that care about their likes and subscribes. I mean, if they shut the channel, who effing cares? YouTube, you're gonna burn in hell anyway. I mean, for what you've been censoring people and dismissing people to platform, you know, Instagram, YouTube, you deserve to go down. I can't stand all of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I only agreed to this because I told, you know, Vicki, we have to get louder and stronger. And if we have to fish where our fish are, we'll go down with the fight, because I will not be warm here or passive aggressive or be accused of, you know, only out here for my likes. I mean, I could go back to my Rolodex of, you know, speakers and people within the establishment. Why? Because none of them matter. All of them make a deal with the devil, and people need to get this. You make a deal with the devil, that's it. There's no going back. And we can break it down and try to give you the moments at the parties or the crazy blackmail stories or the little bits that we can connect. I mean, because we're all trying to figure this out, you know, from what we know and what we've seen, but none of us have been in the, you know, like we don't know exactly what it took for that person to just give in and cave. But the minute they did, that's it.
Yeah.
However long their show, I mean, their legacy is gone. And this is why, like, the royals, the politicians, every single person complicit in this fraud, tyranny, evil, corruption, destruction. Yeah. Even and I knew and cared about, you know, like, he is gone, you know, and there's no going back, you know, and that's what it took me forever to get my head around this, to like really accept these people I loved and cared so much. I mean, I wanted the endorsement. I mean, I was a 20-something with, you know, student in London in the middle. All I wanted was their buy-in, you know. but then I found myself, the more I placated or cowered, the more they didn't, then I just got in line with everyone else. Whereas when I started doing really crazy Jennifer things, you know, like got them to smile a little bit, or I would do a little bit of, you know, then they were like, who is this girl? You know, then that's when I traction. And, you know, and that's how I did it always, because I realized going up their ladder, feeding and pecking along the, that's not going to get anywhere. But more importantly, I have 10 times the backbone that most of these people, the gumption. And, you know, like I was in that country, I didn't have a visa. Any other weaker person would have just packed up and gone, or logical thinking person would have just gone home to California. But I fought like hell to stay in the UK because I loved and believed in the tech that I was doing there. And I was proud of what we were doing. Now I look back and I'm like, oh my God, did I get played? You know, and I'm very proud of that Tech City stuff, but they knew then where we were going. They knew the agenda of where this was going to move to. And this is all part of the step by step by step. They didn't need money from Silicon Valley. They had more money than that 1 square mile. Because they road to one world government. And it really makes me think a lot about the Brexit vote, you know, through that April and October, or April and May, March, April, May time period, where I spent a lot of time with the man. I did. And I got both sides. I didn't talk about depopulation per se, but I was able to talk climate change. He thinks that's complete bullshit. LGBT didn't really, he was like, oh, okay, whatever. You know, like there's all these things. And, you know, then I think about the EU thing. There was an article published where he was pro-EU, and there was an article that came out that he was against. And then all of a sudden he was against. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is how they do it. They control the narrative by taking the most likable person and putting him back in. And that was the red flag that I got with Matt Hancock. I'm like, oh my God, they're making him likable and bringing him back in. Here, put a hat on. They'll forget all about it. I mean, a walking, like now he's sophisticated because he knows about digital currency. No. The guy, I mean, and so this is what makes me really angry to think that this is how they operate, you know, and even if these men really were good people at one point, you know, I mean, even if Matt, you know, okay, schmucky, slimy, a little bit dorky, but whatever. He was, you know, like there's always someone for everyone. But the point, at some point that goes out. I mean, not when you're Nan and people are dying in a nursing home. You know, not Medazzle. I mean, all these things have happened. I mean, even now I think about it. If I was stood face to face with the old, there wouldn't be a discussion of us, because all he is the destruction that he allowed when he became leader, because that ultimately is where he'll hang. He chose a path, and when you make deals with the devil, that's it. You're done. And that's why when everyone's like, Jen, tell me how you know. I'm like, this is what I know. The devil will ruin you. And
exactly. You know? It's you know, you do a deal with them, you do a deal with him, and then you think you're getting all the excitement, you know, the excitement of the perks, you know, but I'm getting all these celebrities, I'm getting this money and this fame and blah, blah, blah. And that's exactly the game the devil plays, because because once that's gone, there is nothing. There's just a void, you know, there's just an emotional, spiritual void, which is, I mean, and let's be honest, you know, we're on this planet, what, for 70? I mean, if you're lucky, 90 years or 75, 90 years, that's not a very long time, really, is it, in the scheme of things? So you better make fucking sure that the stuff you do in that time is not always going to be, you're not always going to make the right decisions, or, you know, you're going to do things maybe that you hurt people or blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, you've got to make it mean something. So that to me is what this time's about. You know, why it's great to meet you guys, to meet Jen and Vic and everyone listening to Jen's channel, because she's so wonderful. You've got to understand the bravery that it takes when you've been very high profile, mixing in with the devil worshippers, observing the weird fucking parties, to actually stand back and go, this is so wrong. This is beyond immoral. That takes real moral fortitude, you know. It genuinely does. And there's a lot of people who I know watch your channel, listen to you, who are like, thank God we've got someone like you, because there's a lot of people who are very lost, very lonely, very scared about their own futures. And you're doing a duty, you're doing a service to these people.
Well, I hope that I can give, at least some texture and as to how these things happen, and, a little bit of perspective on, because I didn't know, you didn't have to necessarily, it's not like a club that you go in where they sit you down and they're like, okay, here's how the world runs, no crash course, guys.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps asking me for, I'm like, what? No, it's, right now, I mean, ask Vicki, I'm like, I always, we're trying to connect dots the best we can, right? We hear a little bit of this, we know a little bit of that once there, and we saw, and what we're trying to do is make sense of the narrative, because up is down and down is sideways.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, I didn't know, like, I would never have thought I'd be crusading like this, like, call them out. Remember that weird time the guy said this, or I mean, I never mentioned certain, like, I could mention a lot of other weird text messages and things like, but like, that wasn't my MO or my priority. I mean, all those years that I was with him, I never showed journalist messages ever. The only reason he came to my flat is because I was too proud. I was like, you think I'm going to serve myself at a Tory party? You think I'm going to jump in the car with you afterwards? Why, check your head. I'm like, if you really want to see me, mister, you're going to come to my flat and see me the way every other man who wants to see a woman wants. And I am not playing games here. And he was like, you're right. How's dinner? He was like, you're the senses. Let's go for lunch. And, and then I'd get his head back on and he'd become, and there were things. Now, look, I'm not saying that I was a perfect, as pure as mountain snow there. But I think about like where I was in these events and things where, I feel like there was always someone in my spirit that was like, get out of here, get out of here.
Yeah.
Not for you, not for you. And, I was always the chubbier one, too tall, too fat, too, fake this, fake, like I was never the pretty perfect ingenue. So I had to make people laugh, or I had to be exceptionally right. And both of those things got me in trouble all the time in New York, LA, and in London. I happened to meet someone who was actually like, no, this is brilliant. You are so refreshing. I fucking love this. Like, don't leave, and like we became really good friends for that reason, because I was like, you really like what I have to say? All right, sit down. Let's go. I've got a lot more. Yeah. But it also put me in positions where, I'm being groomed or hunted, or, like I would have these dang 500,000 pounds, Jennifer, will buy you out, or 200,000 pounds for your visa. And like, people don't realize I turned on all of that because it was, no, not for me. Not going to be, like one investor basically hung me over the head for 200,000. And I knew that he was just trying to get me to say, yes, take his money and work with him, which it would just really, because every time he came over, he sat a little closer, got a little bit, knee, it was just, and I was like, oh God, what am I doing? I mean, if I signed the deal with this guy, and so I think about this all the time when I'm trying to explain to people who are going, how the hell can you, like, what is it? What, these people are crazy. And if you're around the same room with them, that means you're automatically guilty or you're controlled opposition. No, it doesn't. No. But it does give some perspective. Because controlled opposition is very obvious. They reveal themselves, right? Like as we've, because some of us stood in those same groups and we walked the hell out, and we were like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, exactly. And also there's a difference between when you're young and you're in a different city and you're learning and you're around these people. I mean, I've been around people and kind of gone, I feel a bit bad that maybe I agree, or, maybe I sort of like befriended that person or whatever, and you live and learn and you kind of, you find out your place in the world. But in the last 2 years, to me, there is no equivocation about sides. When people go, oh, but, like the guy in the WhatsApp group, James used to go, oh, but, it's good that we've got different points of view or, different opinions about, and I'm like, there is no, there's lockdowns bad, jabs bad, masks bad, Chinese influence bad, taking the people's liberty with money away bad. If you're not thinking that, which side are you on? That's the bit that puzzles me, you know. I'm not talking about the little intricate complexities within those things where we may disagree. We may go, oh, but actually this happened, or did you know that it was this way round? I'm talking about the principles, the fundamentals that everyone should go, right, this is, so we were agreed on that, you know. And that's the thing with the WhatsApp groups. I was like, I don't know what you guys stand for. I've got no idea.
Right.
So, and then obviously with the Hancock thing, that was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, you know, for me.
And if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And
precisely.
We have learned this over and over, because look, again, even if you don't believe in Satan or these demonic evils, you know, then you really don't understand how the world works, because that falling for anything means that anything goes. And with anything goes, so does your soul and your lack of compass. And without this third eye that's clued into this higher, you know, this is what this journey of all of us is about, is raising this intelligence, this higher consciousness back up with all of humanity. That's why it can't be your time or my time, as much as I beat the wall, you know, or like, come on UK, come on Florida, come on, let's, you know, it's none of that. It's everybody, even the sheep, even the controlled opposition shills that still want us to believe they're on the side of good. All of them have to wake up eventually, and there will be accountability.
Yeah,
because
for sure,
works. You cannot not be accountable. You know, and I know that it's been a dark and miserable place, but this is, like you said at the top of the call, really the time of our lives to be able to witness, not just moan about it, but actually witness that arc of transformation. We're all on that hero's journey. For every screenwriter out there, you know, that knows about the point of no return, where then a 5-act screenplay, you know, you bring out your main character, there's just no going back now. Because back there, it's burning alive. It's burning alive. I mean, literally, they're burning food processing. You know, like
exactly. They're burning cattle in Kansas. What? All these cattle have died of the heat. Are you fucking joking? They're all piled on top of each other. Yeah, exactly. It's yeah, but the good thing, and the thing I always try and, I do a podcast on Substack, you know, every Abby Daily, I call it. It's like literally me talking into my phone, and then but it's given people a lot of what's the word, comfort and the rest of it, and that's what we need. We need to gather people around us, even if it's small groups, but as long as we're all linked together, then we can somehow get through this. I'm not saying we're ever going to go back to what it was. We're going to go to something, it's going to be something different, like a parallel. The only way I can describe it really is like a parallel society where everyone's welcome, apart from the people that insisted on people getting jabbed. They can stay away unless they've redeemed themselves and got on their knees and begged for forgiveness. Then they're welcome.
Luckily, there's lots of ways to hold people accountable, you know, with proper justice. So like, we don't have to be the ones that decide how all of them go down or how it, but what we can do is stay on the side that no matter what, no matter what, that we do not falter. We do not go lukewarm. We do not settle for mediocrity. We do not friends like that. I feel like right now, Abby, our voices, and you know, like what Vicki and I do every week with trying to get people to understand the new financial system and the focus on forward, because there is no going back. All we can do is march forward, and each day we grow stronger. But it's that resilience that we don't need a majority. We need a resilience.
Yeah, agreed.
Resilience not be tampered with, well, you know, it was a good opportunity and he got him, you know, to I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. And he's going to regret. he's going to regret doing that. I mean, actually, I don't even really care what he thinks, James Melville, and I actually don't care about them. To me, they're lost. They're the people that they're Peter, disowning Christ, saying that he didn't know, Jesus before he was crucified. That's for their conscience for the rest of their lives. They're gonna have to live with that. And what a terrible punishment when you wake up one morning and go, oh my God, I sat down with Matt Hancock, who oversaw the murder of people. And Matt, I mean, I don't even know what that would feel like. That kind of
imagine being that clueless to believe that would be a great way to kick off your podcast.
Exactly. And no, that's precisely what I said before I left the group. I said, what were you thinking? That was in a politer version of the one that was sent to you, but by Charlotte. But I really hate is when people say, like James Melville again does. He goes, yeah, you don't have to be angry. Look at these people who, you don't have to be angry to put your point across. And I'm like, if you're not angry, furious about the last 2.5 years, where the fuck have you been? Yeah, that's like saying, when with the 1930s Germany, I think it's really bad that people are so concerned that all these Jews are being herded onto trains. I mean, can't we just all be civilized and just have no, we fucking can't, because there are people who are determined that this stuff goes ahead. So if we're not angry and furious and passionate and all these things that warriors are, you don't see warriors, do you, going, oh, maybe we should, we'll have a chat, come on my podcast. That's not what warriors do. So it's incumbent on us I haven't got children, but for Madeline, for your children, for Vix, I don't know if you've got children, my sister's got children, I'm doing it for them, because I'll be dead and buried, dead and gone, sorry, not anytime soon. Sorry, it's like I'm coming on here to confess. Sorry, everyone, I've actually only got a day to live. Bye. But you know what I mean? Like, hopefully in many, many years hence. But then when I want to for kids to be able to go, we're free, we're not scared, we're not having to be a baby breathing, one of these things. I mean, God, just why doesn't everyone feel like we do, though? I don't understand. It's so heinous, it's so criminal. What's being done? These kids being jabbed to these babies. Oh.
We just have to keep speaking, and and that they want us to be battle fatigued, so that Matt Hancock interview comes up. Oh, it's just, please make it stop, make it go away. It's not that bad.
Exactly. You're on the money, Jen, when you said, we'll do this, because then everyone can join hands and just kind of pretend it was a blip in our history. And it's like, are you fucking joking? I get letters from people, their sons have committed suicide in lockdown. These awful things where this woman, I read a letter yesterday, her parents won't see her because she's unvaccinated. Her parents are in their 80s, and they won't have her in the house. So that's horrendous, kids.
Psychological war that's been done to even here in Florida. I mean, they're still traumatized. So anybody responsible, we shouldn't have to spell this out. Yeah. Anybody in power, anybody who was on a show stage, anybody who was touting the narrative and taking their handouts for their pharma contracts to basically keep their TV spot on. Yeah. I mean, anybody like this, this is how they will not be remembered well in history. And this isn't because Abby and our move to fame. This is not what this is about. Yeah. As soon as we get kicked off this platform, oh well, Vicki and I will keep going. We have had our channel. We keep going no matter what. We do these calls. I love having you on, Abby, but this thing that we have on my channel is not about trying to get likes and Matt and Hancock and this is about giving support network for the people that have been through hell and back. Yeah. And exactly. And to us all fighting back, which is what I thought that original group, that we were part of, that WhatsApp group was about.
Yeah.
Find solace in each other, because it is nice having friends, with you guys.
Yeah.
But I saw it last year where it was like there was really no camaraderie. I mean, I felt like you and I were like, let's go stand in the park and take testimonial videos, and they're like, no,
no, we won't be doing that, because it's not I don't know, part of our media agenda. I mean, do you know the other thing as well? The comedians. Someone said to me the other day, it was James Dunningpole. So what other comedians are sort of speaking like you? And I was like, there's maybe Alistair, maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 max. One Canadian, Craig Campbell, Australian Steve Hughes, who's one of the best comics has ever lived, Alistair Williams, Tanya Edwards, and maybe one other. But it's like Lee Hurst as well. But it's like, where are the people who should be going like the George Carlins going, this is fucking insane? What is, because you want to push against the establishment when they commit crimes, aren't you? But I mean, so that's another weird thing, Jen, that and actors as well. I mean, there's a few obviously who've been really outspoken and of course lost their jobs and their income. And there's one guy, John Bowe, who's lost his house. He was a really successful actor, really successful, and he walked away from a TV job and then lost his house. This is a man in his 70s, but very respected British actor. And where were all his friends rallying around him going, oh, well, oh, John, yeah, you're absolutely right. Well done for speaking freely and blah, blah. No, they're nowhere. And you know what? The other thing Jen was going to say to you, when the next person that says to me, yeah, but they were paid, so that's why they did the jab thing, that's why it's for their careers. No amount of Nazi gold could make me toe the line.
Exactly.
Make me push. What kind of fucking money are we talking? I mean, again, I can't think of a figure. So that to me is a false argument.
42,000 pounds, and I think 70,000 pounds was the going rate for some of these stuff. But I just only because it was introduced to me a long time. I shut it down with my manager. She wanted to do like some nursing night sponsored by Pfizer. Ugh. You obviously don't know me at all. No.
Yeah. Have we met? Jesus Christ.
What? But in time forward, do you think I said this last week and I keep thinking about this, during the colonies, with the American Revolution, do you think all those colonists that came over and were settling up, harvesting cauliflower, gave two flying, they didn't care that England still owned them. They were just happy to grow their cabbage and cauliflower. And so they were, there was a few good patriots, that had to stand up to those redcoats, and they did it. And they, this is, when you think about history, I mean, even during World War II, I mean, when most people, we look back thinking, oh my gosh, how could they, isolate Jews and, throw them in the air and shoot them? And think about what they're doing. I mean, it's the exact same way. How can people not see the similarities?
Yeah, absolutely. That's something, Jen, that's something you're spot on about. And you used to really fucking annoy me when people would go, oh, it's nothing, how dare you compare these horrors. And I was like, but that's exactly what happened in the early days, the segregation, the mistrust, the vilification. Oh yeah, the othering of people for their faith or their vaccinate status or whatever. It's exactly the same thing, So, and something, have you read a book, do you know a book called Ordinary Men? It's really good. I highly recommend it. I've only just discovered it. It's about the it's about the sort of 1933 onwards. So when basically all the horrors were being committed in Nazi Germany. And it's about the ordinary men. They were all bakers or butchers, or these people weren't They were just like postmen, whatever. They weren't in the, you know, the Himmlers and the, you know, the well-known Nazis. These were all just ordinary guys. And these guys rounded up the Jews, put them, you know, in front of pits, you know, in front of, in the forest, shot them, and then piled their bodies up on top of each other, and then just went, we're just doing our bit for, and these were ordinary guys. And a lot of the stuff that happened in Nazi Germany wasn't the hierarchy, wasn't the Nazi party, it was these people. They were the foot soldiers doing the work and going, well, you know, it's anything for a quiet life. So it is very, there's a big parallel there.
I think the thing I've had this biggest struggle with is that people knowing, you know, even starting with my scandal, knowing the truth, knowing that that was factually incorrect, knowing that that never even happened, and they still it. And that at first it started with my, you know, the scandal of all the, you know, stuff that was being written about and taken and embellished and weaponized and all that. And I got really mad with my friends. And then when I saw the way that this was, you know, rolling into this very, you know, something else weaponized, especially the 2020 meeting with the Bank of England, and then lockdowns, and then, you know, you couldn't go anywhere, you know, but you had to be vaccinated to go, and people wanted to go on holiday. And I just thought like the complicity, you know, people that knew better, they knew my story, they knew the media lied, they knew how the operation works, and they still got in line like little pin cushions. I mean, I still struggled with that. But then when we get, now here we are a year and a half later, and these people still like, la, 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 let's get along. Yeah. And you're like, what? How much longer does this have to last because of your inability to grow a pair? Yeah. You know, stand up. Exactly. And fight. Exactly. Even using your voice to share, to, you know, to get other people to be inspired to stand with you, because that's what we need, you know, that resistance. Yeah. And you know something, I maybe once upon a time I cared what people thought about me, especially my my colleagues, you know, in the comedy world. Now I don't give a shit. If I'll say to people, I don't care what you think about me. I know I'm on the side of good. So you just carry on wanking, or you just carry on with your bullshit, and let me do mine, and we'll see who, you know, has the better conscience at the end of it. Wow. Well, I love talking to you. I feel like we could talk. Vicki, I mean, how are you doing over there?
I think we're done for any questions. There's just a lot of really positive comments, you know. Abi, your conscience is clear of the whole John Gaunt thing, and had to leave this amazing chat because my children sat down beside me, mind blown. Pervy old men made me laugh. The ones who talk to your chest, best call ever. And everyone's going to catch up. Don't know how long it's going to last on YouTube. Maybe need to look at another channel. Another channel.
Shit. Go through the edits, like, and literally all it is just like a minute of me and Jen. That's it, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching.
Speed you up just like to 1.5, whether it will get through their algorithm.
Yes, guys, it has been so lovely, Jen. We'll do it again, because this is like, I've got a mic and I've got my, you know what I mean, I've like got my thing set up now. But I've loved it. I've loved every minute. So thank you for having me on.
I love you, Abi, and I'm so blessed to call you my friend. Thank you so much. You're
gorgeous, honey, and I can't wait for when you come to London town, or if I can get to, well, I don't know how I'm going to get to you, because I'm not been jailed. I'll have to swim or something. Go via Mexico.
Yeah, we can be a refugee. We'll get let straight in.
I'll just literally put on like a Mexican hat and go, arriba, let me in. I want to see my friend Jennifer Arcuri. What do you mean I don't know Mexican? What are you, I'm rude. I look very Mexican.
You join a mariachi band.
Yeah, mariachi. Yeah, we could. The blondest, palest Mexican that you've ever fucking seen.
I'm not done in the UK, and I will be back, but you know, right now is not the time for me to go. Hopefully next year, you know, maybe this time next year, I guess.
Yeah.
You know,
there'll be a time, and we're going to have great times, drink beer together, and hopefully celebrate something. I don't know what, but anyway, we'll just keep on fighting. Keep on doing your thing, man.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your time tonight.
Love you loads, sweetheart. Love you, babe. I've got a mic here. It's huge. It's like a huge cock. Anyway, on that note.
All right.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye, sweetheart.